This is Rennie Harlan, and welcome to the set of Cutthroat Island. Here we go.
Look at me, sure. I'm the Cutthroat.
Ahoy there, welcome to Rated Aargh. Thank you for joining us on another adventure as we chart our course through the realms of cinematic piracy. Today we're taking a look through our spyglass at the movie that almost killed the pirate genre, Cutthroat Island. My name is Ryan, and please join me in welcoming my co-captains Christian and Braxton. Guys, how are y'all doing?
Arr. Isn't that what we do? Have we figured out what we say?
I thought you said I. I mean, that's...
Well, wait, no, I think I always say R, and then you say I need to say I.
You were the one that said you should say I.
I know, but I forget. I forget every time.
Oh my gosh.
It's a thing now.
I guess it's just going to be a bit at the beginning of every episode is me being like, you're actually not supposed to say R. Yeah.
Well, it's like in Pirates of the Caribbean when Will goes like, you know, acting totally uncool, and he says, "I avast," and then everyone looks at him.
Yep, pretty much.
Yep.
Christian, how you been, man?
Good. I loved this movie. I'm excited to talk about it.
Sweet.
It was a fun watch.
I'm excited to talk about it. It was a fun watch. Yeah. It was pretty enjoyable. So Cutthroat Island, for those that don't know, was released on December 22nd, 1995. And Braxton, would you recommend that people watch this before getting into this episode, or should they just listen to the episode and then go watch it after the fact?
Mm-hmm. I think they'd be able to listen to the episode without watching it. I think that if you're really curious about what we're talking about, I would say watch some extended version of some of the clips we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But the movie itself, you can kind of take it or leave it. But it's a fun watch.
I mean, I agree with that. It's definitely a lot of fun. And we don't have a ton of clips today. We probably had too many in the Fool's Gold episode. In fact, it's still, as we're recording this, the day after it's supposed to get recorded. It's still not up because I've literally uploaded it to YouTube 8 or 9 times because of copyright stuff. And I've been making little cuts here and there and then trying to re-upload it. It's been up on Spotify. If you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, y'all are golden. But if you're watching on YouTube, just be aware that sometimes things could get hung up, unfortunately. And I've been working on this since, I don't know, a day or two before we were supposed to post it. It's just a freaking pain in the butt, man.
But I think this movie has more value as... Its whole is less than the sum of its parts. It has more value in clips than as a movie, in my opinion.
I mean, I would agree with that as well. I'm not going to spoil my ratings at the end, but I know one of the first things that you said when the movie was over, Braxton, is this movie was freaking awesome, but the script is terrible.
Everything about it is amazing, except the script.
Yeah.
That little detail.
Yeah. There's a lot of memorable like stunts and scenes that go on in it. In terms of, like dialogue, there's not many quotes. In fact, I don't hardly remember anything other than her saying "bad dog," and that's because it was like so. It was like the stupidest line I think I've ever heard anyone utter in a movie.
It's the equivalent of in Paul Blart Mall Cop when he hits the scuba tank and he says "scuba doobie doo," and you're like.
Yeah. That might even be better than "bad dog."
I agree. I think it is.
I think it might be. There's at least some redeeming qualities in Paul Blart
at least
Mall
it's
Cop
Kevin James delivering it.
Yeah. Christian, I'm curious to know. I know you said you're excited to talk about this. What are your like initial opinions on Cutthroat Island?
Initial opinions was that I am so shocked that it flopped in the way that it did. Because it was just amazing. Like, I guess it just came 10 years too soon for audiences to want to see it. Or, I mean, it got the Christmas release. It had everything you could ask for from, like, the crazy stunts, the really cool pirate feel to the movie. So I don't know why people didn't see it. I will say that there were times where I felt for sure that it was the inspiration for a lot of The Curse of the Black Pearl, a lot of their shots and a lot of the stuff that they picked up on. And I mean, you guys might say otherwise, but I don't think that in 1995 people would foresee that, like, the script's not going to be that good. We saw the trailer. It looked really cool. It looked really good. I would think that a lot of people would go see it. So I just don't know what happened.
There's a lot of things, and we'll unpack that as we get further into the episode. But you said it got the Christmas release. I actually think that's maybe not a good thing for a movie like this.
I'm thinking about that now.
I mean, I think Pirates of the Caribbean, for one, got really lucky with a July release because, I mean, that's like the perfect time to want to watch a pirate movie is in the middle of summer. Like when people are, wanting to go to the beach and wanting to go to islands and do all this other stuff. Like a pirate movie is the perfect time to have, like, in July, not Christmas. Like people want to watch Christmas movies or they want to watch some insane blockbuster. Like even Aquaman that we watched last year at Christmas. Right. Why on earth did that get released at Christmas? It doesn't make any sense to me either. Like I feel like the Christmas release for this almost hurt it worse than if it had gotten a release at a different time, especially because I did look, and I don't know that I actually pulled up a screenshot. I think Jumanji was released like 2 weeks before this. Toy Story was end of November 95.
Yeah.
So there were lots of really like big movies in 95 that were released like right around the time that would have probably still been in theaters at the same time as Cutthroat Island. And I'll go ahead and get into a couple ratings here, and then talk a little bit about the budget because that's one of the big things about Cutthroat Island. So Rotten Tomatoes has this at a 40% critic score and a 40% audience score, which I was very surprised by. That for once the critics and audience agreed.
That's true. It's kind of rare that they're exactly.
Yeah. You don't see that very often. IMDb has it as a 5.7 out of 10, and Letterboxd has it at a 2.8 out of 5. And the critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is Cutthroat Island may aspire towards the earnest thrills of classic swashbucklers, but a distinct lack of charm and stilted script make this adventure a joyless hodgepodge of the pirate genre's flotsam and jetsam.
Okay, they didn't have to use a boating term there at the end, but they did.
I mean, I agree with that too. I read it and was like, "That's the most."
Do you know what
ridiculous
flotsam
thing.
and jetsam is, Christian? Can
I
you describe
personally
what
don't.
that is?
I hope Christian does.
You're putting you on the spot.
It's like stuff that is floating after a wreck, right? I forget which one's which.
Here, let me Google.
I'm not sure.
I would assume flotsam is what is.
Flotsam is floating on or washed up by the sea.
Yeah.
Okay. And jetsam?
Unwanted material or goods that have been thrown overboard from a ship and washed ashore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So one is from wreckage, one is on purpose. And these are also the names of the eel sidekicks and the Little Mermaid, Ursula's sidekicks.
Yeah.
They're called Flotsam and Jetsam, and I really hate that I know that.
Is that Dutch, do you think?
Probably. It sounds, but that's a guess.
Well, I guess while you're looking up if that is Dutch, so I know one thing we talked about is wanting to get the description of the movie off of a streaming service. So this one is from Prime Video for Cutthroat Island. And the description on Prime Video is a female pirate and her companion race against their rivals to find a hidden island that contains a fabulous treasure.
Okay. With other ones, it was funny. With this one, it's just sad because the story is so simple that is just what the movie's about.
Yeah.
So it's not funny. It's just sad that that's accurate. That is the story.
That is the story. That's what happens.
Because other ones would make fun of it when it only described like half of it or not very well. But nope, that's how I would describe it.
That's just what it is. Yeah. So we kind of talked about the Christmas release being a terrible time for a pirate movie, in my opinion. But the budget for this is kind of all over the place. What IMDb has officially down on the main page is $98 million. I've also seen 105. I've seen several different numbers. But the problem is that this movie has a a terrible thing about it because it has a Guinness World Record as the largest financial loss ever. At over $105 million, and when adjusted for inflation, that is $147 million. Because on opening weekend, it brought in $2.3 million, and the worldwide box office was only $10 million because MGM pulled it after 2 weeks because it was doing so terribly.
I wonder if that made it worse. I wonder if maybe if they would have let it sit there, if it would have made back more.
And it didn't hardly get a worldwide release at all. They say worldwide box office of 10 million, but that's not exactly true because they pulled it from the U.S. theaters after 2 weeks, and it barely even opened outside of the U.S. It had very brief runs in France, Netherlands, and Portugal, but that was it.
Oh my God. That's crazy. This is the biggest flop.
Biggest flop.
Yeah. Which one thing that bothers me is today people will use the word flop or other things when they don't really understand what it means. To me, a flop means purely financially.
Yeah.
If a movie sucks and it makes a bunch of money, it's not a flop.
No. I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the Disney remakes, a lot of people, including myself, think they're not that great, but they are not flops.
No, they make a ton of money.
Millions of dollars back on their production budget.
Yeah.
But this is an absolute flop. And again, it's weird because, it's not god-awful. It's fine. But it just seems to have it seems to have weird circumstances around its budget. And then, like you just mentioned, weird circumstances around its release.
Yeah.
That led to this negative number. A gigantic negative number.
A gigantic negative number.
Yeah.
It was filmed in Thailand and Malta. I know
you were right.
It was supposed to be set in Jamaica. Is that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Royal,
Jamaica, right? And
which is another part of the Caribbean.
They don't even try to hide that it's not filmed in Jamaica because you guys were immediately oh, this isn't Jamaica. This is Thailand or something.
Well, there was also the guy who was doing the Jamaican accent.
There was a guy that was doing a Jamaican accent?
Yeah.
Maybe
and
I
it
don't
was
remember that.
It was okay. But it sounded like the ones that me and Christian were doing before the movie started.
Jamaica man.
It sounded like that.
Yeah.
Cinnamon.
That's basically how it was going. Cinnamon is the winning man. Oh my goodness.
But yeah. No, but when Christian, when you and I saw the end, we were like, is that Thailand? Is that Southeast Asia somewhere? The giant rock-shaped islands.
Yeah. It looks so
I guess
much
that was Cutthroat
Asia.
Island.
Yeah.
But which, by the way, Cutthroat Island it's a great title in my opinion.
I mean, I think it's good. It's a cool name for an island too.
I wouldn't want to live there, but
absolutely
I'd visit.
not. But it is a cool name. So essentially in Cutthroat Island, Gina Davis plays Captain Morgan Adams. It's a female lead, which is maybe a good thing, maybe not a great thing. There's, I think, maybe been some talks of some other pirate movies, maybe even before Cutthroat Island, of having a female lead, and they all got canned. And then Rennie Harlan liked it, and so he was like, "Okay, we're gonna make a movie and have a female pirate lead." And it was the first. I think it was the first time that there was a female pirate lead in a movie. And I mean, there's a lot of circumstances around this, but it basically
I wish it was a better movie because it's a cool idea. It
basically killed Gina Davis's career. At the end of the day, she had a really hard time. I think basically everyone that was involved in this had a really hard time after Cutthroat Island. But I mean, Gina Davis and Matthew Modine, who was the other star, the male star.
You know who he is, right? Do you recognize him from a recent thing?
I probably do, but
He's the daddy doctor of 11 in Stranger Things that she calls Papa.
Really?
Yep, that's him. But old.
Wow. Okay, that's crazy. He doesn't even look the same.
His head's got
I have
skinnier.
to look at him again. Maybe. I don't know. I'd have to look at him again. But yeah, crazy. And what's even crazier is we'll get into the stunts in a minute, but Rennie Harlan and Gina Davis at the time of filming were married. I don't know if you guys knew that.
No.
They were married, and I think maybe they had been dating a little bit before, but they got engaged and married before it, and they basically called this movie their honeymoon.
Oh, no.
Which seems
no wonder why it's
bananas.
The budget is... Oh.
But they did basically all their own stunts in this, and the stunts are outrageous. And I think there were some injuries from some stuff on set.
Some of the craziest things I've ever seen in a movie.
I think there were maybe some injuries on set. I know that there's a shot that we're going to watch in a clip in a little bit where Gina Davis comes out of a window and lands on a carriage. And there were like multiple times where she missed. And one time she almost got run over and almost broke her back. I
read that. That one time she came
like,
out too early.
Yeah.
When I read that, I was like, who let this movie be made? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it is pretty wild that that you would force your wife at the time to do some of these insane stunts. Like, I don't know if there's anything else that I would be like, oh yeah, like some of that stuff would probably even maybe still get done today. Probably not. But, some actors doing their own stunts. I mean, Tom Cruise is famous for doing his own stunts, and they get crazier and crazier every freaking time.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that also, too, is that he has just enough money that he can, cover his own insurance policy for whatever.
I guess, right? I mean...
I guess so. But I can't imagine being the director of a movie like this and being like, yeah, I'm going to put my wife in harm's way. Like, she could die, but, it's fine. She'll be fine.
Yeah.
The stunts have to look real, okay?
Well, yeah, that's what's crazy is, like, on that stunt, right, is you see her face somewhat, but that could have been a stunt double, and I wouldn't have blinked an eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why wasn't it just a stunt double?
And speaking of stunt doubles, they having the actors do their own thing. Like Gina Davis in promotion of this movie went on talk shows and basically showed them clips of her like failing these stunts and having to do them over and over again. So you want to talk about a number of things that raised a budget. You're talking about time. You're talking about they had 3 cameras running for every scene, which is yards and yards of film that just got completely scrapped.
Can you believe that? Like, Christian, can you picture that, having 3 film cameras running all the time on every single shot? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
insane.
Crazy.
Well, and I watched the DVD extra deal. I cut together some stuff. This is not in there. But when they were going to like actually go and do the shots with the cannons where they're like firing at both ships and they're going to blow up the Reaper. This is insane, man. They had 9 cameras running during all of that. All of it. You're talking about an entire day at least of filming with 9 cameras running just solid the entire time. Like how much footage and how much film was just completely wasted running 9 cameras continuously throughout the shoot. I mean,
it made it look
like
cool.
There's a lot of things.
But do you need
There's
9?
a lot of things. There's a lot of things that led to this budget being $100 million.
Yeah.
Like there's so much wrong with this. I even read something last night when I was going through some stuff.
Is it about V8?
Yeah. Do you have that?
Yes.
Did you read that? Go ahead. You tell it.
Okay.
Because it blew my mind. It blew my mind.
This came from Matthew Modine, and supposedly the director and the star, Rennie Harlan and Gina Davis, spent large sums of money to have cases of V8 vegetable juice shipped to the set in Malta.
like a room full. It wasn't like a few cases,
Yeah.
Like
Towards
2 or
the end
3.
of shooting, an entire room was found to be full of unopened juice, and everyone present was told to drink up before they threw it away.
I hope they said drink up me Hardy's Yo-Ho
And then they all
before
drank
drinking.
V8s.
I mean, surely they did, right?
Yeah. They had
But
Bloody Marys.
there's like, that's insane. And then you have all the film and the time and all this other stuff. And they were like, if you had just hired stunt people to do these
I know.
stunts instead of forcing the actors to like, do things that they don't know how to do, like sword fight, and like swing from ropes and all the other insane stuff that they had to do. Like that might have saved $50 million. Like realistically.
Yeah.
Christian, I mean, what do you think about all the actors doing their own stunts? I mean, you can clearly see it in the movie when you're watching that most of that stuff is not like VFX at all. Is wild.
It's insane. I mean, it's obviously very dangerous stunts, but that's what stunt people are for. And that's exactly what I guess movies do now is they really try to limit the amount of time that the stars are actually present in filming.
Yeah.
Just from a safety issue. So I would also like to know like how much of a delay they saw, how many delays they saw, like when a major actor would get hurt during something, because they do.
Yeah.
Would that just cause them to like be like, okay, we're going to be stuck here for another 2 months while they recover from a broken arm or whatever, and then we can give this another take? It just sounds like bad directing at that level and bad decision making.
I mean, I agree with that. And you talk about delays not only from injuries and stuff of the actors. They did multiple rewrites of this. And basically one of the main actors, I think that was Matthew Modine replaced, I think he got in a bar fight with Gina Davis, or he read the script. There were a couple different stories. I think maybe he was wanting as much screen time as she had, and they wouldn't do that. And so he quit. And so then Rennie Harlan is like preoccupied trying to go and hire a new male lead, and in doing so, wasn't really involved in the script writing process. He wasn't really involved in any of like the set design. And so he shows up for filming and he's like, this script is terrible, so it has to be rewritten. And so they did a bunch of rewrites. He spent $1 million of his own money on script rewrites.
Now, I wonder if that first script was actually good. And they rewrote it to be...
He spent $1 million of his own money because Caralco was like so deep in the hole that they didn't
have any money to
fund
give.
anything else. And he also like completely rebuilt all of the sets, like the ships and everything, dude. Yeah, he got there and was like, "This is not what I had in mind at all." And they basically like scrapped almost everything and rebuilt like from the ground up.
That's
there's no telling how much budget was just wasted on that.
Yeah.
This sounds a lot like the premise of Tropic Thunder, where it's like, here's the story of how this movie
Bungle in the jungle.
Yeah.
Bungle. I need to watch that movie again. I've only seen it that one time when we all watched it.
It's one of my favorites.
It's pretty good. Braxton, do you want to talk about Caralco?
Yeah. So, just very basically, they started out as sort of smaller production company, essentially. Then eventually they started putting more budget into films that also with bigger stars. I guess their most famous movies would be Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Total Recall, the Rambo movies. And I think Rambo is actually kind of what slowly built them up over time, because the budgets for Rambo at the beginning were probably like super low. They just went out to the woods and shot it. And then they became crazy action movies as they went on. But I guess essentially, I mean, and it really, this movie, I'm sure, obviously because of the budget, played a huge part in bringing the company down. But really, what did you say? Like, they were already going bankrupt before the movie was even...
I think they were maybe had bankrolled another big movie. I can't remember which one it was. I should have written it down.
But
I think they had bankrolled another big movie, and so they were basically like trying to fund two massive budgets.
Right.
And I think the other one maybe got released before Cutthroat Island, and it did not do well. It was a big flop as well. I don't think it flopped nearly as big as nearly as hard as Cutthroat Island because of the marketing and stuff that Cutthroat Island, didn't get because of another situation. Basically, MGM is the one that was supposed to do the marketing and distribution, and they were in the middle of a sale because they also had no money. And this movie didn't get marketed like at all. Like, I don't know how much marketing actually happened, but that was a big factor of why no one went and watched it as well. But Coralco, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember which movie it was, but they were trying to bankroll multiple movies and basically were bankrupt by the time that Cutthroat Island even made it to theaters. In fact, I think they started filing for bankruptcy 6 weeks before Cutthroat Island made it to theaters. So when you have a movie that there's two companies involved that are both going bankrupt, it's just doomed to fail. I mean, it's basically what it boils down to. Wild times. So I mentioned a moment ago, Rennie Harlan was trying to bring in a male lead and was pretty preoccupied with his time. So I have a list of guys who turned down the lead male role for Cutthroat Island, and this list is freaking bananas. Tom Cruise, Daniel Day-Lewis, Keanu Reeves, Liam Neeson, Jeff Bridges, Ralph Fiennes, I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name. Charlie Sheen, Russell Crowe, Tim Robbins, Gabriel Byrne, and Michael Keaton.
Should have been Jeff Bridges. He would have brought that charm.
All those people turned it down.
Dang.
Wild, dude. Absolutely crazy. And at one point, both Gina Davis and Rennie Harlan begged to be let go from the movie because they knew it would be a disaster. They knew the script was bad. They tried to get out. They were not allowed to. So they're like, the more I looked into this movie, the more I realized, like, oh, this was doomed to fail. Like, there was no one involved that thought, hey, this is going to be a successful movie.
Jeez. God. And that's what sucks about it, is it has potential. Like, with a tiny amount of tweaking, it would go from okay to like, oh, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
Yeah.
Which there's a lot of movies like that.
You said in Fool's Gold you could re-edit it down to like an hour and a half and it would be better. Do you think you could re-edit this one and make it better?
Re-edit it? No. But I think I could do rewrites. I think I could do some very simple rewrites and improve the movie. Now, again, I'm completely talking, with no experience on this level. But it's one of those things where sometimes you really do feel like if I sat down for 5 days, I could do it.
Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit about the movie because we haven't really gotten too much into the actual movie yet. First of all, I have a question for you. Is it the most insane place to have a map is on your scalp? And in order to give the map to someone, which would be your daughter, she has to cut your scalp off.
It would have made more sense if the map was on his throat.
Now, I will say, would this be more simple nowadays if you tattooed it on your scalp? Because you wouldn't have to be scalped. You could just take a picture of it on your phone.
Well, yes, but here's what I want to know is who tattooed it on his head? Because they would have to kill that guy after, right?
I think
they would have to kill the guy who made the tattoo because he saw the map.
I also saw on IMDb, or maybe it wasn't IMDb, maybe it was somewhere else, that one of the guys like drunkenly joked that it would be funnier if they tattooed it on his penis because he could have done it. He could have actually done it himself rather than someone else tattooing it on his head.
I guess.
I mean, it was super jokingly said.
Yeah, but this is
I think a better description would have been a woman cuts off her dad's scalp and hides it from her uncles. And that's just the only description they give for the movie. Because that's basically what happens.
That is basically what happens. That's way more accurate than whatever they said.
Wasn't there something like this in Rush Hour 3?
Yeah.
With like the French woman?
Yeah, it was on her back.
What happens in that movie? Do you remember?
Or was it on her back or on her head?
She takes off a wig, so I think it's on her head.
Yeah, I think it was on her head. She had something tattooed.
It's like a list of like Yakuza members or something, like tattooed on her head. Rush Hour 3 was weird, man. Damn, he ain't going to be in Rush Hour 3.
That's what I was saying. I started making this about Rush Hour, but when you guys were talking about the cameras running in the film, I just thought about the Rush Hour outtakes when somebody calls Chris Tucker and he puts Jackie on the phone.
And the whole time the cameras are rolling.
Film.
You're wasting our film. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. Anyway,
I will
what do you
say
think about a scalp? Like, that's insane, right?
Yeah.
Am I wrong in thinking that?
Well, and my whole thing with, like, you know, I enjoy movies that are absolutely insane. And I don't require much explanation for things. But I do feel like there's a lot of stuff in this movie, like the scalp map and, like, where the treasure is on Cutthroat Island that, like, is an interesting idea. But in the movie, it's just presented as, here's this thing. Okay, we're moving on. Like, it could use a little more lore, I guess. I don't know. Not even like plot hole or something like that, but just more depth to why this thing is weird and cool.
Make it a rated R horror movie, and that's you show the scalp cutting off on camera.
You know what I mean? Because it literally is like she cuts the thing off, and then we find out later it's a map, and then we're already moving on. There's nothing like I had to do it in secret because there's none of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would totally agree. I think the coolest part about it is that it's really good writing where with the idea of it being on his scalp, there's like an extra weight added to whatever this treasure legend is, because like the only way it could be found is basically like over his dead body. And so it immediately adds some kind of weight and seriousness to the story.
Should have just said that.
Yeah, but there's no like cool backstory to it. We just find out there's a map on his head. It would have been so cool if he was like, there's a secret society. Do you have to kill this many number of us and take our scalp? Like, that would have been so cool.
I think in that moment, instead of it being like a secret, he should have laid out the story of how they found out we didn't even know who found it or why they knew.
This is the craziest thing.
The line where it's like, yeah, my grandfather found it. Like, oh, he did? Okay.
Let me look this up, because it almost made more sense when I read this the other day.
And we were paying attention to the movie.
Let me give a quick statement and see if you guys agree. I think there were like one or too many family members that I couldn't keep up with. Like, it should have been her dad, and an uncle. It's like once we got to the second uncle and a third uncle and a grandfather, it's like I don't know what's going on.
Because the second uncle didn't really do anything. He just got eaten by an eel or something. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Those eels, I think, were animatronic.
I don't want to derail us too much off of this, but
Rush Hour 3.
I want to read the plot. So in case you guys don't know, which you probably don't, there's not much merchandise for Cutthroat Island. There is a Morgan Adams doll, but there is a Cutthroat Island video game that was released on Super Nintendo, Game Boy, Sega Genesis, and the Game Gear. And I didn't know what a Game Gear was, but it was Sega's handheld competitor to the Game Boy. And on the Wikipedia page for the video game, there's a little section that says plot. Now, tell me if this doesn't make more sense reading this than the actual like explanation in the movie.
This says
In 1619, a pirate cutter, the Sea Devil, captured a Spanish cargo ship called Santa Susana. Before reaching its destination, the Sea Devil was caught in a storm and wrecked on the uncharted Cutthroat Island. Only one member of the crew managed to get off the island alive, Fingers Adams. Before dying, he made a map and tore it into 3 pieces, which he gave to his legitimate heirs. In year 1688, as the pirate Morgan Adams, who currently has 1 piece of the map, the player has begun a quest for the other pieces of the map in hopes of eventually finding the treasure. Already a wanted woman, Morgan will need to fight the law as well as those who hold the pieces of the map. Now, that last paragraph is a little more video game based, but it's still
why does the back of a video game give more plot than the movie?
I read that first paragraph and I was like, this makes more sense than what was actually laid out in the movie. Am I wrong?
You're absolutely right.
I mean, like,
That's
I read
hilarious.
it and I was like, wait, that's what happens in this?
Oh,
I didn't know all that.
I was like, the movie makes so much more sense.
it never said that. It never said that.
Like,
never said
all
that.
it had to do is, it could have even done like a little crawl at the
I
beginning.
know. Yeah, I was thinking
Like
text.
Fool's Gold. Fool's Gold had more exposition and actual explanation for why there's a treasure than this entire movie.
Right. You're so right. But they did
I
blow
learned
some
more
stuff
about the
up.
treasure
though.
of the Queen's Dowry on the first 5 seconds of the movie than I learned about why there's a Cutthroat Island at any point during this whole freaking movie.
Oh my god! And then the pitch guy was like, "But get this: they swan dive off of an exploding."
That they do.
And you're like, "Oh,
That-
okay."
That they do. Okay, I brought up the video game. I found a trailer for the video game on YouTube. That's a
You
minute
thought it
long.
was funny?
And well, it's just like it was kind of cool. So
I'm
let's take a
intrigued.
look at that. Let's take a look at that real quick, and then we can kind of continue on. I mean, it looks kind of goofy.
Yeah,
And there's a level on here in just a second where they're in a minecart that apparently is like the worst level in any video game ever.
oh no, that does look awful.
Yeah. And apparently, like, during that level, there's trees and stuff that block you and basically ruin you. But you can only see so much of the screen that you don't really have time to move. And you move, like, up or down. But I think you can basically play as Morgan, or what's the character?
I was
that
just about to
Matthew
say,
Modine-
I'll give you $1 if you can tell me what the guy's name was.
Dude, I cannot remember off the top of my head.
I really
at all.
can't remember either.
But yeah, it's just like a little basic, like, minute long little video game trailer. It also flopped as much as the
I
movie
wonder
did.
why.
Which, I mean, if you're expecting a movie to do well, you would hope the video game would do well. But when the movie does not, having the video game does probably not help you any either. Because I don't know how many people would even want to buy that to begin with. And I definitely don't know how many people would play the game and then want to watch the movie.
Yeah, that the plot of the video game is a revelation.
And I don't know if maybe like the Cutthroat Island Wikipedia would like explain the plot similarly.
You know what? I bet it
did look
is.
it up.
I wonder if the people who were working on the video game got like some original script version or a basic synopsis of the actual script, so they had that information for the game and put that on the box. But then that was lost and never put in the movie. I bet that's what happened. Because they would have started on the
It's
video
definitely
game at the
possible.
same time the movie started production.
Yeah. And at the end of it, there may not have been any kind of, similarity.
Dang.
It just, has the same name. So I think if you're making the video game, you're probably just like banking on the fact that they're not going to change too much. And it's like, oh yeah. So I wonder if the minecart thing was from an early script and they were actually supposed to like get away in a minecart or something at some point and that got cut. Or if that just was like, hey, what can
It worked in Temple of Doom.
easily? Yeah, I think one of the videos that I watched about the video game, made a joke about that minecart level and is like, yeah, because every like video game at that time had a minecart level in it. He was like, even FIFA 95 had a minecart level in it. And he was like, that's a joke if you can't tell.
Right. But it might as well have had one.
Yeah. It might as well have. I don't know. What do you guys think about the video game? Is that something that you would be interested in playing ever?
No.
That's
one thing that I love bad movies. The problem with bad video games is the translation doesn't quite work. Because it's fun to watch a bad movie. It ain't so fun to play a bad video game.
Yeah. It would be, I don't know. It'd be like along the lines of like playing an ad for a video game that you play on maybe another game.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this looks really fun. Download the game, completely different. I did derail us a little bit.
I made a note here just to bring us back on topic. Blow out his bottom. I just have that in quotes. Now, if I'm remembering right, I think that doesn't she say that in reference to when they're going to set the explosives off?
Yeah, on the Reaper, like towards the end.
And I think we all looked at each other and were like, "What is bottom?
What does that mean?" Oh man, I do have a question, and I'll ask Christian to start us off. What is your favorite scene from the movie?
They had some really cool underwater shots that I thought were really cool because they pulled off what Curse of the Black Pearl did 10 years after with so much better equipment, so much better stuff. So this pulled off so many shots and scenes that I was thoroughly impressed by. We will probably be in agreement that our favorite scene, or one of them, was the chase scene, the wagon chase through that, the port front, that street. That's one of the coolest scenes I've ever seen.
I have a brief clip of that if you want to look at it after you get it.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's also crazy the tight spaces they're getting these horses in.
Yeah.
The music is so good too.
It's pretty good, man.
And it's got great usage of slow-mo. Zack Snyder should watch Cutthroat Island to learn. Not the fish!
This shot, man. Wild.
When that happened, our mouths were agape. And then this.
This is like some of the craziest explosions I've seen. And then we got to the end of the movie, and I was like, no, this is the craziest explosion.
It's so crazy because it's absolutely real.
Yeah.
And when they do the wide shot and the timing of when the explosions are going off versus when the wagon passes by, the margin is like that.
Yeah.
So
that shot of her coming out of the window is one that Tarantino talks about. And I do have a clip from him. It's not about that actual scene specifically. It's just about the movie in general. But that's one that he said that he like paused and rewind and paused and fast forward and like slowly. He's like, I cannot figure out how they did that. I did read on IMDb. It's a composite of 2 shots that Rennie Harlan said they did.
Interesting.
And he said you can kind of tell like when she like hits the wagon that like her face is covered and then she pulls her hair back. So I think they may have had like a stunt double or something at some point, or like just a body double. But like she actually like rolls out of that window and tries to land on the wagon. Isn't that freaking nuts?
It's a beautiful shot.
Oh man, Christian, I know you said that's your favorite. I kind of interrupted you. Did you have anything else that you were wanting to say about it?
Although the scene is amazing, I really specifically like the part where they go past the gibbets and all the different like the gibbets where the dead bodies were in
where the pirates are hanging up. Yeah. Those were cool.
Oh wait, should that be on Pirate Bingo?
A gibbet?
Yeah. There's gibbets in
okay.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah. You can throw that on there. Why not?
That's like the cage, right?
Yes. Braxton, what about you? What's your favorite scene?
It's hard to pick one because that one is great, and that one, like, again, that made my jaw literally drop when I saw it, and then followed by all the explosions. But the one that I said, "Can we rewind it, please?" is when they blow up.
Yep.
What's it called? The Reaper.
The Reaper.
Don't fear the Reaper. When they blow that up. And I don't know if it's a combination of the way it's shot or the sound design, but it's so crisp and clear that it's a real explosion with thousands of tiny chunks of wood. It to the point where when you see it, you're like, that's just a ship exploding. It's not, that's a ship in a movie exploding. You know what I mean? That's the difference, to where it looks like they just filmed a natural disaster happening and not that it's a movie effect. And that just blew my mind. And that's what made me want to rewatch it.
They actually blew that ship up.
That's a beautiful thing.
That was a real explosion.
Oh my God. I think that has to be my favorite. That's the takeaway.
I mean, I'm in agreement with you. I think that is probably my favorite scene of the whole thing. I'm trying to think of what another scene might be that I enjoy more. I don't know, honestly. I think this movie, for me, lacks memorability in a lot of ways. Like, there are a few stunts and like really impressive things that you're watching on screen that when we watched it, I was like, holy crap, that's insane. But there's nothing else that really stuck out for me that was like, oh yeah, I definitely like want to watch this every now and then.
Right.
In fact, I don't know, I may watch it one more time, but I don't know when I would watch it again. I have heard that the DVD commentary with Rennie Harlan is pretty interesting, so we may need to try to watch that at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think probably it would be the ship explosion, because I like almost jumped off the couch when that happened. There are a lot of things that like the Oppenheimer freaking Trinity test, man. Like, I watched that and I was like, just awestruck. That one, I was like, holy crap!
It made you want to just scream out, "Oh my God!"
Like, how did they?
What other movie does that?
They actually blew it up.
You maniacs! You blew it
You
up.
blew it up. Yeah,
For real.
Planet of the Apes moment. Oh man, dude, that scene is wild. And we have a clip of that one too. I think now is probably as good a time as any to pull that one out and watch it. So let's take a look at the giant ship explosion at the end.
Bad dog.
No, I love his death here, and I love a good bad pun, but like, dang,
Yeah.
that's rough.
I wonder, did they have to shoot that with like a doll?
Yeah.
This whole sequence is
Jesus!
That's not. This is the crazy part. Holy frick!
You see the sonic boom, and it's not that you just see the sonic boom. You see the sonic boom pass by real actors.
I think like you see like a shot kind of from. So there's two ships in this. I don't even know if we talked about that. You have the Reaper, which is like the evil ship of the bad guys, and then you have the Morning Star, which is Morgan's ship that she's. I guess she's technically like the good guy in this. I've always thought it's interesting in these movies that you have pirates that are seen as outlaws and bad guys, and then you have like even further than that, more like evil guys, like
Right.
just flat out evil.
Yeah, which is interesting. Yeah, because I think that's definitely a pirate trope, right? Where because the main character is a scoundrel, the bad guy has to be like the equivalent
Really
of like
bad.
a Sith Lord in Star Wars. They have to be completely, totally, irredeemably evil for the audience to root
Yeah.
for the good
Well,
guy.
and it's almost, if you want to put it in Star Wars terms, it's as if there's like, the general populace, the Jedi are then like seen as bad people.
Yes.
And then
Han
the
Solo is
Sith
the ultimate
like,
good guy,
Yeah.
even though he's a piece of crap as well. Like, ultimately, he's just...
I mean, that if you want to put it in some kind of Star Wars terms, that's how I would say
Yes.
the Jedi would be the pirates in this scenario, and they're seen as bad by the general public. And then you have like the Sith, which would be like the evil pirates.
Yeah.
And it's funny that we like hold these like a Jack Sparrow or whatever to like this high standard of, oh, I want to be that guy. Like, he is like the top of the food chain in our society. And realistically, like, people are out to get him, and he has a bounty on his head, much as Morgan does in this.
Yeah. It is, which then gets into the whole psyche of pirate movies and why I like them, actually. I tend to feel like I like movies where there's someone like a pirate or an underdog type character that's sort of like shunned from society being the good guy, rather than like, the main hero's journey type character. You know what I mean? I'm more drawn to the pirate type stories than, the like knight in shining armor stories. That's why Shrek, in my opinion, is so good. Because it literally subverts,
Shrek 5.
all of that stuff.
Shrek 5.
Which maybe that's why in the 80s and 90s pirate movies weren't a thing. Because in the 80s and 90s it was like the respect for authority was the big thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Buddy cop movies, war movies. But in the 70s, the anti-hero was the thing.
Well, and that is an interesting thing too about Cutthroat Island, is because it's kind of seen as like the death of pirate cinema, but it's more of like a delay potentially, because there was not much made for like a number of years before it.
Right.
And until Pirates of the Caribbean, like, there were no more successful pirate movies.
Yeah.
Like, you have a jump from like what, the 70s to like the 2000s.
Yeah.
Where you basically have almost no decent pirate movies. I mean, Cutthroat Island is not bad by any means.
Right.
But it was such a
It's not
flop
like
that
pirate
people
movies
perceive
were
it as
bringing in bank for
pirate
the
movies
previous
are
10
bad.
years. They weren't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Interesting
man.
stuff.
It's an interesting story, that's for sure. Christian, how do you feel about the explosion? I want to hear your opinion of how insane the explosion was for you.
It was absolutely nuts. I will also say that there was no it wasn't like Oppenheimer where we had a 20-minute build up to it, and we knew that it was going
It's
to happen.
literally like,
Which was nice. I mean, they're also, like less than 100 yards from the ship.
yeah,
So
which
you
is,
would get an
and
instant
actors were
reaction.
on it.
Yes. Isn't that crazy? I don't know how that
Yes.
they got away with some of this stuff.
a lot of ships back then would actually explode in similar ways. Like, I know that feels insane, but one of the largest explosions ever recorded, at least up until like right when they first started testing Trinity.
It's in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, isn't that mentioned, the ship that exploded?
Yeah.
What's the
It
name of
is.
it?
Yeah.
It was
I don't
in
know the exact name
Halifax,
of the
right?
ship. Yeah.
In Canada?
It was in Halifax, yeah. But a lot of
Was it
times they would
gunpowder?
Yeah, it would be. They would be loaded with gunpowder. Sometimes it would be fermented alcohol, and that's a theory. So there's been several ships that were found. Like, we know them as like ghost ships, where people find them and nothing's on it. Like, one of the theories was that people were so afraid that when they found out that a lot of this stuff had like leaked, if it was a liquid that they were carrying, if it leaked in the ballast, they thought it could explode at any second. So they just like immediately abandoned ship, and no one ever found them. No one found the crews, but it was such a big fear back then that these ships could just explode. And it didn't take that much, because they constantly they were burning down all the time. They would keep the decks waxed, and
Yeah, isn't it basically dry wood that has to constantly be like oiled?
Yeah.
Which is basically like the the worst combination to create a fire.
That's crazy.
I thought the
I
ship was
wonder
pretty
what
cool.
that would have looked like though, like at the time. What an actual like gunpowder explosion would look like on a like 18th century ship.
I mean, probably that.
Mythbusters.
Probably what we witnessed.
Come on.
Probably what we witnessed. But yeah, it's briefly mentioned in Oppenheimer because they talk about like the size of explosions when they're talking about like, you know, kilotons, megatons, all that stuff. There's like a brief clip of a ship exploding and you see like wood and it's like super quick. But that's the one that they're referring to, I'm pretty sure, is the what was the name of the ship that exploded?
We don't know, but it was in, I think it's called the Halifax disaster or explosion.
Okay. Gotcha.
Here.
So the ships, like, I mean, you can see in the clips, like, they're real. They actually blew them up. And there's a pretty good clip that I found on a podcast the other day from Joe Rogan where he had Quentin Tarantino on. And
he was talking about his love
like,
of feet.
He was not talking about his love of feet. He was talking about like building out real sets because not a lot of people do that anymore. And you know, he's one that's, I think, you know, trying to preserve that form of building out some big elaborate sets. But you don't see it a ton anymore. And this is one that has some crazy sets. So let's take a look at the clip from Quentin, and then I have a little behind the scenes of some DVD extras that we'll take a look at after that. Okay, this is a clip of Tarantino. I will preface this with Tarantino is how would you describe him in the way that he speaks?
Weird.
Well, I was not going to say weird. He's sort of vulgar, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
He swears a lot, so just be aware of that. If you want to skip like a minute or two ahead in the podcast and not listen to this clip, I understand. There's lots of swearing. Just be aware.
I like building big sets. I like, you know, I like doing things for real. I mean, that means something. You know, a movie like a movie that didn't get much respect when it came out, but now in a world where like it probably never would have been done that way if done now, that is really impressive. Is if you look at Remy Harlan's Cutthroat Island. It's fucking amazing. I mean, especially in today's world. I mean, like, they spent a lot of money on it. It was a big flop, but man, they do like magnificent action scenes in it that are just fantastic. And they're on real ships, not some bullshit. They're on a real ship, and they build entire towns and have carriage chases through it. And you know, and you see Gina Davis practically break her fucking neck doing all this wild ass shit. I mean, that's a fucking movie.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, it was like this huge flop for Carolco, but like you look at it now and it's just, I mean, it's terrific.
There's something really funny to me about Joe Rogan casually going, yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
I don't know why that is really funny.
It was interesting. I think that episode is like 2 or 3 years old, and I was just listening back to it, and we just happened to be doing Cutthroat Island as I'm listening to this, and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Well, I was like, maybe we should, you know, put that in the episode because it is a cool perspective. As you know, Tarantino's a very well known, highly like renowned director, and he's, you know, does some, you know, weirder stuff. I feel like people either love Tarantino or they hate Tarantino. There's not much in between. But
he's an expert on film history. And he knows his stuff, so he knows this is the perfect example of something like that.
I thought it was interesting that of all the movies that he could have referenced in that time to talk about like building out sets, that's the one that he chose because I mean the sets in this, like, what person is going to build 2 pirate ships?
Yeah, like
realistically. Who's going to take the time and hire people to build out 2 pirate ships just to have them completely trashed? Like, it's not like they're, you know, pulled into a dock and you can go take a tour of them. And, like, one of them is completely exploded. We saw it on screen. Like, just completely exploded.
Yeah. I think this movie is the perfect example of that because I would honestly say that's probably the most redeemable quality of this movie is the production design and the stunts, the real work. And there's something to be said about it. It makes stuff special, and you can tell when it's real. And I wish there's more of that today, basically, because you can tell.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell. Like, there was no point.
Not to say
in
that it's
movie
bad
where
without it. It's fine, but with it, it's amazing.
I mean, there's no point in this movie where I thought, oh, that doesn't look real.
Yeah.
And that's hard to say nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to say in most movies in general.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, you watch Gina Davis grab onto a chandelier in a bar and swing across from one side to the other. She actually did that.
Yeah.
They actually hung off the side of a mountain, off a cliff. Can you believe that? That scene, they're actually hanging there. The only VFX that they did on that was they painted out some wires, and apparently the water underneath was super calm, so they like added like roaring waves.
Oh my god.
Other than that, they actually were on the side of a cliff for that. How Harlan was able to pull some of this stuff off and not like have someone come after him after the fact and be like, yeah, what you did there was highly dangerous, and
illegal.
basically we will never have anyone do that again.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they never did it again.
Maybe so. Maybe it's because of how dangerous it was, not because it completely bombed.
Yeah.
So I do have a thing of DVD extras that I found on YouTube, and it's actually like 6 or 7 minutes long if you wanna look it up. I think the YouTube channel that has it posted is literally DVD extras.
I love channels like that.
Yeah, I think
watch
you can
stuff
just
on
type
them all
in
the time.
like I think what I typed in actually was Cutthroat Island DVD commentary. And then I got this. This was like the first thing that was recommended was a DVD extras. But I downloaded it. I cut it up. So this isn't the full thing. If you want to go watch it, it's actually like really interesting. And there's some more like behind the scenes stuff that you'll see in it.
This is Rennie Harlan, and welcome to the set of Cutthroat Island. Here we go.
Shot of them like they actually were on the ship fighting. This is shot on a helicopter, apparently.
One of the
They're
biggest
actually
challenges
on a
was
wagon
building the two
fighting.
main pirate ships. The Morning Star and the Reaper were built to actual size. Before taking to the sea with the ships in Thailand, Harlan needed to control the sea for many complicated sequences. So, Harlan shot in an ingenious water tank on the island of Malta, situated on a bluff facing the open ocean. When the tank is filled, it provides a seamless horizon of water and sky.
Open fire!
I don't know how people didn't get hurt.
They probably
Or die.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. I know people got injured a little bit here and there. I'm just like seriously like critically injured. Like it looks like they're actually shooting cannonballs at each other.
Right. If
Does
they're
it
not,
not?
they might as well have been, basically, with the amount of explosions.
Did it
that are
not?
going on.
You literally saw like a wall crash in and these guys with a cannon like falling over, like be blasted.
Oh, you remember those things they had that were shooting like the little mortars off, like a firework?
Yeah.
That was cool.
I think they had a little bit of that in the behind the scenes deal too. It was wild. That whole thing is just crazy. But I liked how that there was a little clip in there. I put it at the very beginning where Rennie Harlan's like in a helicopter, like, "Hey, this is welcome to the set of Cutthroat Island."
Yeah. Today we spent $1 million.
Yeah.
I will say the music also it's too high quality for the movie. It's like really, really good.
It's
and
pretty good.
some of the I liked it because it was the score, but they also used a choir. And so there are moments of it where it sounds exactly like the Star Wars prequels. It uses the choir in combination with the orchestra to create like a really cool sound, like John Williams did. And, yeah. Dun, 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 dun. God, and there was also like the helicopter stuff. There was amazing camera work in this too.
Mm-hmm. So I have a quote about the ship explosion at the end that I found from Rennie Harland, and basically this just I said the big ship explosion at the end. They said could have been done with miniatures, but that wasn't Rennie Harland's style. And this is a quote from him. It was built to last like a real ship, to go through the movie and all the things involved in the film.
Oh my God,
it was made out of
right.
real wood and nails and materials, and we blew it up with tons of dynamite. And as you can see, there's nothing left of it. It's just basically toothpicks after the explosion.
That's an insane quote.
Yep.
Because I didn't even think about that. It was just the ship that they actually built.
Mm-hmm.
So when they blew it up, it wasn't just a few deals of C4. It was like
dynamite.
the force that would be required to produce the explosion. No wonder there was this visual shockwave that.
It's because they actually blew it up with dynamite.
You maniacs.
Freaking crazy, man. Freaking crazy.
Also, the sound design on the 4K that we watched was really good.
It was really good. So I think I did see something where he talked about the sound design a little bit. Apparently, this was like one of the first movies to have a digital soundtrack. And so he like took a lot of care in like making sure it sounded as real to people as it possibly could in theaters.
That's cool.
And, I really think that does come across pretty well. Even like, I mean, we're watching it on, a home cinema. It's not being in a movie theater. And my sound system is okay. Like it's pretty decently good, but I mean, it sounds great. Like I was very surprised at how real that the sounds, like the sound effects in it sounded, especially the explosions.
Yeah. That's
Like,
where it was amazing.
I'm sure that's not easy to capture. And like, I'm sure some of that they probably would have had to capture like on the shoot, like this explosion at the end of the ships. And you get one shot at that. Can you imagine being the sound person for that? That has to be the one in charge of recording this insane explosion. And there's no like 32-bit float back then where you can just plug it in and you can adjust it in post. Like you pretty much have to have that thing nailed. I would be like
stressing out.
I don't know. I would be stressing. Absolutely stressing.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact you have to be somewhat close to, a giant explosive hazard that could, poke your eye out.
Well, and I kind of wonder if during the explosion, if the crew was actually on board the Morning Star, or could they even have someone that close?
I feel like I feel like it was actors on it, but I feel like it might have been an illusion that the ships instead of being this close were like
They were
that
farther apart.
and maybe it was an illusion of perspective.
But how far away would you have to be with that much dynamite to explode a ship like that? Because it's not just like they used a couple things of dynamite and blew it up. No, it's like an insanely massive explosion, dude.
It's so big that I feel like after
I
that
still am
happened,
just thinking about it and playing it back in my mind, and I'm more dumbfounded every time that I think about it than I was the first time I watched it.
yeah. It's one of those things where, like, if you would have been there on the day and like felt that explosion, you'd have been like, "Is anyone else like happy that we're not dead?" Because I feel like we were that close. We used weight.
The whole crew just like did a group hug at the end. They all start hugging each other. They're like, "We didn't die."
It's
Successful day on a shoot.
Christian, it's like in Mythbusters. You remember the cement truck? When they used way too much explosives in the cement truck and it basically like evaporated into thin air. And they all have that moment where they're like, I think we used too much.
I guess I need to watch this. Did they like exploded a cement truck?
And it literally is the instance of one frame it's there and then the next half frame it's gone.
That's crazy.
And it's a cement truck.
Oh my gosh.
It's one of the most beautiful things that's ever been on a television.
Oh, that's wild. All right, Christian. It's time for your historical check. Take it away.
We've got Hell's Kitchen on in the background. I didn't want Gordon coming through. It seemed fairly accurate, and I don't know if we're going to find any of these where it's like 100% accurate. They always throw in a little bit either supernatural or there's some weird treasure
Flair.
theme.
It's a movie.
Yeah, it's a movie, but I liked
It's not
it.
a documentary.
It had some cool stuff. I do not believe that eels would be that aggressive out of the water.
They look like dinosaurs.
That was insane. That was scary. I thought that all the torture devices that it showed, that was pretty cool and seemed fairly accurate.
I do wish I knew if the eels were real. Like I haven't seen anything about that in researching this.
I think they're
look
animatronics
insane.
from what I looked up.
Okay.
But they look real.
Crazy.
What I will say is that this movie was amazing. Like I think we all loved it, but we all loved it just for the vibes and the insanity of it, because there was almost like no discernible plot.
Or even like,
just
what can you tell me about the main character? Like, what's her deal?
nothing. We don't know how she got into piracy. We don't know why she was a pirate. We just know that she cut her dad's head off. And so
We don't even know what she did. She has a bounty
yeah,
on her
that
head.
is true.
Because they talk about it. Don't know what for.
and it's cool that it's a female lead. There were, I mean, like Anne Bonny, Mary Read. There were some very successful female pirates. Perhaps the most successful ever was a female pirate in China. So that part is realistic and stuff. But what we didn't get to see a lot of was like evidence they actually put historical research into it in regards to like how the crew interacted, how they did certain things. All that was super vague in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot that gave you like, this is how the town operates. This is, these islands have really unique culture or whatever it might be. It was like as vague as it could be. It was just living off of explosions. I thought her name was cool. Morgan Adams. That's like a fairly believable pirate name. But I would say it's more accurate than not. It's quite fanciful, but in terms of just how life was back then, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I feel like the wardrobe was also probably pretty accurate, right?
Yeah.
Which is just like Pirates of the Caribbean. They were pretty spot on with all that. Oh, did we, because I asked you about this when we were watching it. What is the name of the things on the front of the ship?
Oh, it's a figurehead.
A figurehead? Were there ever any that were as elaborate as what we saw in the movie?
Yeah.
What was the reality of that?
Typically, they would be super, super elaborate, and they go back like thousands of years. Some of them had
That's like
religious
Greek stuff
connotations.
even, right?
Yeah, Greek, Phoenicians. They would put horses and sirens and all kinds of stuff on the front. There would typically be some reason, some superstition behind it. A lot of the first like missionaries would have like religious depictions on the front. And a lot of these ships, so much care was put into them that's not something that you would like skimp out on if you were building or designing a ship, because these things were wildly expensive, wildly difficult to build. And you took care of them. So a lot of them did actually have very expensive, really cool, intricate figureheads on the front. And that's something like we should do more research into. I'm sure there are some museums out there with still existing
Like preserved
figureheads.
ones? That'd be cool.
But
Did,
I
did
think
the
we
Black
typically,
Pearl have a figurehead? I can't remember.
Yeah.
It does, but I think you only see it briefly in Curse of the Black Pearl, from what I remember.
Okay.
I don't remember
We'll
what
have to,
it was.
when we watch Atworlds and Dead Man's Chest. When we watch that one, because that's the next one we have up, is number 2. We'll have to keep an eye out and see about figureheads and that.
Interesting.
there was like a rhyme and reason to everything too. It's like if you wanted it to be a head of a horse, that would make your ship super fast. If you didn't want it to die in a storm, you would make it like some sort of mermaid. There were
Poseidon.
different dragons. Yeah.
Which
all kinds
wasn't
of
that the one on the good guy
I
ship?
think the
Wasn't
Morning
it some
Star
form
had
of
like Poseidon or something, and then the Reaper just has like a Grim Reaper looking thing on it. It was pretty sweet. They were both really cool. It was crazy. We kind of talked about it briefly. I couldn't really find any good clips of it without like just having the Blu-ray and recording stuff. But there were some like really cool shots, and like during the movie, I remember saying like, "Oh, that's literally just a hey, we built this. We're gonna show it off." Shot.
There was several of them, and they looked great. But yeah, they were proud of their work.
I mean, realistically, I don't know how much the figurehead on those would have cost for each of them. I'm sure that was probably one of the more expensive parts of the ship, if I had to guess, just because of how elaborate they were. You could have done away with them completely, and no one would have said, no one would have thought any differently. It was kind of over the top, in my opinion, for what they were trying to build.
Speaking of over the top, but it's something that I love in any movie. I don't care if it's trying to be realistic or not. This movie has some of the most cartoonish sounding punches and slaps. Like the loudest whoosh sounds. I love it.
Yeah.
I wish every single movie that has a punch in it, I wish that it was this like intense. Yes, it's like a cartoon, but I love it.
Yeah.
It makes the hits feel like so much more of a big deal when it's
feel
such
powerful.
an insane like
Feel a lot more powerful.
yeah.
And like, oh wow, yeah, that person's gonna be hurting tomorrow.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Braxton. Bingo time.
Bingo time.
Bingo time.
All right. it hit several. So let me run through of ones
I would hope so. It's a pirate movie.
that
This is
I
not a
thought.
pirate
Well, some
Jason
of the
one.
ones we've seen aren't quite up there, but there's quite a few here that are missing, and I'm gonna run those by y'all to see if I missed any.
Okay.
But ones that I think that I'm pretty sure it contains. This movie had a peg leg, a treasure chest, rum, a sword fight, cannon fire, 18th century ship, the Jolly Roger. They literally fly the flag. There's a mutiny. There's a mention and appearance of the Royal Navy. There's a tricorn hat. There's piles of gold treasure. Possibly one of the craziest piles of gold treasure that is in a movie. There's a pirate girl. There's a boarding party. There's a giant cavalier hat, which is the big musketeer hat. There's a map on a man's head. They do say the word pirate. There's a scene where they raise the sails on the mast. There's a monkey, which is a newly added thing to this because we've seen more than one.
I did see something where Rennie Harlan said that he thought a monkey or a parrot were like potentially the only two things that a pirate should have as a pet.
I concur. I like to see one with like an iguana.
I'd like a weasel. Or like a ferret.
I'd like a weasel. They do swing
why
from
not?
the rigging.
They swung.
There's appearance
I
of-
cut it out of the extras. They actually swung from ship to ship. Like you can see it under. They have a shot in the extras deal if you go back and watch it, where they are like between the ships in a small boat filming upwards, and you can see them swinging across. And it's not like it's like a foot. No, it's like 10 or 15 feet that these people are swinging.
Mm-hmm. A newly added one is gibbets, which I have learned is the name of the little cages.
Yeah.
Also
not
featured
to
in
be
Pirates of the
confused
Caribbean.
with giblets, which is this type of corn.
Or niblets, which is what Hannah Montana would say. Sweet niblets. Okay, that's what it contains. So that's about that's probably almost half. What is not included in this movie? Don't get to keep the treasure. They do get to keep the treasure. They don't say yo-ho or land-ho.
How accurate would that be, Christian? Tying like a empty barrel to a treasure to mark it? Or just like, not necessarily a treasure, but to mark something. Like, is that something that a pirate would actually potentially do?
Well, it depends because there's no most of the time, there's no distinction that needs to be made between like a pirate and a regular sailor, because the majority of them learned nautical practices through probably a Royal Navy at the time, and then they went their own way. But I'm sure they did all kinds of stuff, and the issue is that not all of it was a widespread practice and recorded. So we just have to guess, and you can say, yeah, sure, someone actually tried that at some point, but I don't know if that was something that would have been like taught or handed down as like this is what you do in this situation.
I just wonder where they came up with that then.
Maybe you know what it probably was? They wanted to blow up the other ship, but they couldn't figure out a logical way for them to get the treasure off of it before it. So they're like, they just find it later.
Yeah.
Because we want to blow it up.
They did have hooks. Some wrecks that were shallow water lost a lot of crates and stuff like that. There were specialized hooks that they would drop over the side of a ship to try to recover that.
Okay. So it's possible.
I will say, is there would a pirate trope be the like deal where she, I don't know how exactly we would word this, but where she like throws her sword into the mast and says, "Anyone who takes the sword to challenge me."
Yeah, I mean,
yes, that's why I added this new one, which is fight, which I didn't mention. Fight or vote on who is captain. That has happened in 2 of the previous movies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's almost like the Alamo draw the line in the sand.
Yeah.
It's almost like they pulled that from a specific historical instance. But
Right.
I don't know if that happens super often.
But
I don't
it
know.
has happened
I
in
didn't
other
know
ones
if that was one that we had or not, because
where the crew sits down and either has a discussion and a vote on who's going to be the next captain, or someone goes, "Who says you get to be the captain?" And they kill each other.
Yeah. Kind of like in Bike Riders.
Yeah.
It's just like in
No.
Wait, did you see Bike Riders, Christian?
Have you seen Bike Riders?
No. I was going to say what was really common was that I was adding to your previous comment. What was really common was them publicly executing those who would attempt a mutiny. There's like a famous story of Sir Francis Drake in, I think he was in Argentina. I think they had sailed all the way south to Argentina. And they got in this big storm, and his crew had essentially accused one thing that was common in those days with superstition. They singled out a crew member, accused him of witchcraft and summoning the storm, and then publicly like decapitated him on the beach.
My God.
And so, yeah, it was quite common and I'm sure that that happened very rarely in the Royal Navies, just because they had more of a legal code to them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was fairly common that if somebody was like, we don't want to go this way, we don't trust this decision making, there wasn't really that structure. So there was a lot of mutiny.
All right, let's get to our ratings.
God, I always hate this because I always forget to rate it until you mention it.
I'll give you time to think about it. If you're new to the show, our rating scale is called the Pieces of 8. We give it 2 ratings. One is a general rating, what we think about the movie. Another is the piratiness rating that we give it and how piratey we think that it is. I mean, that's basically it. We've had some good ones. We've had some poor showings in both categories so far, and I'll start it off if you want me to. Christian, if you want to start it off, you can.
I would give it overall a 7 out of 8. I would say with that, I'll give it a 5 out of 8. It was more there than not. I would say that sometimes like I didn't feel like I was watching a pirate movie, more just like a historical adventure piece. But I enjoyed it. I think it fell. What might have happened was that they just the flop came from them just not seeing a future in it and not really pushing people to it. I now see that it might not have been great for a Christmas release. I hate that they pulled it. I think it makes a lot more sense now that you said that there were 2 big movies that came out just before it. So it probably suffered, a lot of people suffered from like movie fatigue probably because they had been at the movies twice the last week or two. Yeah.
Jumanji was the second highest grossing movie in 1995. And I think it was either, it may have been the week before. So like it was like in theaters. And at that, I mean, in 95, you know, it's probably a lot of, oh, you should go watch Jumanji this weekend. Oh, you should go watch Jumanji this weekend. Not a, hey, you should go watch Cutthroat Island.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the choice between those two, you would rather watch Jumanji. I mean, just let's be honest. I'll go ahead and go. So for a general rating, I'm going to give this a 4.5. It just, I don't know. It didn't really do it for me. It kind of, I don't, I mean, like I kind of mentioned earlier, it was, not very, there was like almost nothing memorable about it other than, you know, the crazy explosions and a couple stunts. But like, I didn't even know what the movie was about for half of it. Like, I just knew that there were maps and there was a treasure. There was no like general direction. Like, oh yeah, like this is what happened. I didn't even know like the backstory of the thing till I read the freaking video game article on Wikipedia. So I'm going 4.5 out of 8 on the general rating. And then my piratiness score, I thought this one was pretty dang piratey. I mean, you know, there's maybe not quite as much of like the fantastical aspects of it as we've seen in like Pirates of the Caribbean or in Sinbad or something like that. But you know, while it is in pirate lore, like more often than not, most of their pirate voyages would have been something similar to this. I would think there was a lot of swashbuckling. There was, you know, a lot of like cool piratey stuff going on. So I'm giving it a 7 out of 8 for piratiness.
Yeah, I will say that there were parts of it that I would definitely give like a 1 or 2. They were horrible, but the vibes, the explosions, the massive sets, like it just it totally redeems itself. That's a Dumb and Dumber callback, but just an amazing movie. Horrible, but amazing.
That's a great description. Yeah, like I think I said before, my conclusion with the movie was that the music, the production design, the acting, the stunts were amazing, and the script is probably one of the worst ones that I've ever seen in a movie. So it for me, the overall rating would be a 4 out of 8. I mean, yes, the parts that are good, you know, do bring it up. And I think those parts are rewatchable, but overall its rewatchability, because there's not much substance to it, is pretty low. And that's what lowers it kind of for me.
Yeah, like you said earlier, I think the clips, you could watch them separately and be like, wow, that's insane. And you get the same effect as you would watching the entire movie just to watch the giant ship explosion at the
exactly.
end. So.
Piratiness, that's hard to say because I feel like there's a lot of, I mean, obviously they had lots of tropes, they had lots of good stuff going on, but I think, Christian, you described it earlier, there's kind of a vagueness to a lot of it where they kind of, you know what it almost is that I just thought about? It's almost as if they're making this movie and putting stuff in it based off of what they know should go in a pirate movie and not what should go in it because they're pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like they're basing it on what they know should be in it based on other pirate movies, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that, there's not much. It makes the piratey stuff almost shallow as well.
Yeah.
So to me, I'll give it like a 6 out of 8 because it's there, it's good, but it doesn't seem like, well, again, like what has Morgan Adams done to deserve her, you know, her face on the poster? What makes her
not a clue?
You know what I mean? What makes her a pirate?
Not a dang clue. Okay, so 6 out of 8 on piratiness. Is that what you said? Yeah. What did you give it for a general?
4 out of 8.
4. I mean, that's about how I felt about it. Yep. So, and last but not least, should we induct this into the Rated Aargh Pirate Cinematic Universe? I'll go ahead and say my vote is yes for this one, which I I don't know. I kind of was up in the air on, honestly, but I think I finally settled on a yes for this one.
It's tough.
I think what sold it for me, honestly, I'm not trying to convince you guys at all.
No, convince me.
I think what sold it for me was the fact that they actually built like 2 realistic pirate ships.
Yeah.
like any of the, the actual story and the acting and all that's kind of, I don't know, water under the bridge for me because I don't know. They did so much set design and, they tried to make it very piratey. It just had, sort of a lackluster script, which is no fault to, the
And
actors
it is,
that
I would
they
say,
didn't have.
arguably significant in sort of the story of the genre, right? Even though it didn't kill it and it was already dead, you could say it played its part in sort of the total journey over time and what people thought about pirate movies.
Well, and I mean, we didn't induct Sinbad because it's not necessarily a pirate movie. Like, there's not a whole lot of pirate actions going on. He's more of a sailor, and it's just kind of
Still
a journey
upset
that's
about
going
that.
on. Yeah, we didn't induct Fool's Gold because
I remember that. So I'm gonna say
it didn't
no
really have
on
anything to do with
Cutthroat
pirates. Wow.
Purely out of spite. No, I'm just kidding. I think it should be.
Okay, Christian.
I vote yes, completely. Because
And I changed my vote to no.
I think if we're going to talk about bringing it into our Hall of Fame, it should be judged against its peers at the time. Because, you look at Sports Hall of Fame, we don't talk about guys that played 100 years ago and compare them to now. Like,
That's a good point.
was it the best of its time? Was it groundbreaking? Was it ship-breaking? Like, to me, it pulled off stuff that it was like
that
10
hasn't been
years.
surpassed today, even.
Obviously, there were script problems and writing problems and stuff, but the stunts and the filmmaking techniques, which were so impressive because I read like half the crew quit during various scenes, and it just felt so competent.
But
But there's one thing we didn't talk about. So you had like one of the main actors quit. Another guy was fired because he actually I have who it is. His name is Oliver Reed. He was originally cast to play Mordecai Fingers, and he got in a fight with Gina Davis at a bar, and he mooned her, which got him fired. So
you know who Oliver Reed is?
I don't.
He's the guy who died when they were making Gladiator. He's Proximus or Proximo.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I think he also died in a bar. Or he died of like of a heart attack after a night of drinking. Isn't that what we read?
Oh my gosh. So he got fired because he mooned Gina Davis, who is, the director's wife. So that may have been some personal vendetta there of him getting fired. And then Rennie Harlan got mad at one of his I think his chief camera operator, and fired him, which subsequently led to 12 other people quitting.
Like revolting. Mutiny.
They got mad that he
There was a
fired him.
mutiny on the set.
Yeah.
Dang.
Wild time, man.
I think it took a
Dozen
big
other
step.
crew members.
Without that movie, I don't think we would have Dead Man's Chest and Curse of the Black Pearl and the vision that they came out with, because they basically had a blueprint in front of them that was like, all right, someone else has done this before and everything went wrong. So what can we do this time around to make sure this is successful? And so they actually tweaked some stuff. At some points, I felt like if I would have just walked into the room, saw a 20 or 30-minute segment on TV, and I didn't know about the Pirates of the Caribbean series, but I knew that it was mid-2000s, several movies, and it was just a high-budget movie, I would have thought that I was watching that series.
That's a good point. You're absolutely right.
And so I think it should be in our cinematic universe, in our Hall of Fame, not because it is the best, not because it makes sense at all or is perfect, but because it took giant
Because they
leaps
blew ship
forward.
up.
because they blew ship up and it took giant leaps. I mean, it's not Michael Jordan, but you wouldn't have Michael Jordan without James Naismith, who invented basketball. And this invented what we think of today as like a pirate movie.
Yes.
It accomplished so much.
Yeah, Cutthroat Island belly flopped, so Pirates of the Caribbean could like
Cannonball. Get it?
Good one.
Okay, I feel like I stressed it too much, and I get it.
Oh my gosh! I will say, I don't know if you noticed this back here. Would you care to explain what this is, Braxton?
Nope, I don't have anything to say. I got that for you at Walt Disney World in the gift shop for the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. And it looks really cool.
Is it true that ride has water that smells weird, really weird?
The water does smell a very specific way, and I think it probably started because of the way, like, you know, maybe like a pool, sort of, you know, like, you know, cleaning chemicals smells like that. But I think since then they put like scents in it to make it smell like that, and they also sell like candles that are scented after it because people like the scent so much.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It doesn't smell good, but it doesn't smell bad either. It just smells like a clean pool to me. Which, by the way, I did take like a full ride POV when I was on the ride.
Mm-hmm. The Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
So that is something that we could talk about at some point.
Ooh.
If we wanted to.
Ooh. Nifty.
Jack Sparrow is in it.
Well, I would hope so.
There's a Jack Sparrow robot.
Does he look like Johnny Depp?
He actually does, yes. He doesn't look funky.
Wow. Oh, wow. They did it right.
He doesn't look like a robot.
Go Disney World. Go Disney World. All right. Well, before I get us out of here, I would like to say if you're new here, thank you for watching. If you've made it to the end of the episode, I hope you enjoyed watching Cutthroat Island. If you would, hit subscribe, like this video, share it with a friend. Leave us a comment if you have any future movies that you would like to see. And if you guys did not know, Spotify has added comments under podcasts to try to compete with YouTube.
I always thought that was a good idea. So you can leave us
comments on Spotify now. Like legit, like YouTube comment style comments on Spotify. Yeah. So if you're watching on Spotify, listening on Spotify, leave us a comment of any questions that you have or movies you'd like us to watch. Leave us
even if it's an actually comment, stars. We love those too.
Leave us 5-star review. Those are always appreciated. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us 5-star review. Let people know that you love it. And as always, share it with a friend. It's the easiest way for us to grow the show. And
suggest
with
a pirate movie.
Said, do what?
Suggest a pirate movie.
Yeah, suggest a pirate movie.
We're always making our longer list.
Yeah, we are. So that's going to do it. With that being said, it's almost time for us to take this ship to port, but before we do, we wanted to make sure you found our proverbial message in a bottle detailing next month's movie of choice. So coming September 10th, we will be taking a look at the 1935 Errol Flynn movie, Captain Blood.
Heck yeah. We're going old school. Is this the oldest one we've
excited
watched?
about watching an old movie? Yeah, right now, Treasure Island is the oldest movie we watched, 1950. So this will be the oldest movie.
Heck yeah, dude.
Yet.
It's a good movie. Yeah. I've seen it before. I'm gonna vouch.
I know you were the one that recommended this, so
it better be good.
Looking forward to some good review here from Braxton in the next one because he's already seen this one. None of us had seen Cutthroat Island, right? I didn't even mention that at the beginning of the episode.
I think at the very, very end of the podcast, I'm going to sneak this in. Speaking of my dad that I talked about on the Curse of the Black Pearl podcast, I think this was a VHS that we owned because he liked Cutthroat Island.
Did he really?
Yes. He thought it was cool. So I think he made me start watching it one time, but I was like a kid and I was bored and I didn't want to watch it.
Yeah. Well, this is one that we got recommended in our first YouTube comments.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think there's a lot of love out there for Cutthroat Island, and I'm glad we got to watch it.
I mean, I think this is a lot of people's favorite pirate movie, in all honesty. Like, it's very cut and dry. It's not fanciful. It's
very cut and throat.
Just a straightforward, very cutthroat. And with that, let's get out of here. Goodness gracious. Thank you guys for watching. We hope you enjoyed Cutthroat Island, and we cannot wait to see where our next adventure takes us.